Welcome to 92.5 Phoenix FM and Getting to Know You, a programme during which we endeavour to get to know a little of the private side of a person as opposed to their public image or persona. My guest today is a singer and composer who has had a life immersed in music and song, known for her crystal clear soprano voice and captivating stage presence. Her ethereal and unique blend of traditional, classical and sacred combine to afford a deep spiritual connection with her audience. She has toured the world appearing at major venues and has collaborated with a who's who of the music industry. And oh yes, on top of all that, she's won the 1996 Eurovision Song Contest for Ireland. So let's try to get to know her. It's my great pleasure to welcome Eimear Quinn. Good morning, Eimear.
Good morning, and I have to say I love your opening signature tune. It put a smile on anyone's face, and I'd be dying to meet whoever was going to come after that tune. So it's lovely to sit here and talk with you and talk to those listening.
And likewise. Before we take a trip down memory lane, we should mention that you're performing in concert in Draíocht.
19th of November,
and on 19th of November.
Yeah, on the 19th of November, I'm going to be back in Draíocht. It's been a while since I was there, a beautiful theatre in the heart of Blanchardstown. And I am excited to go there because they've invited me a few months ago, and I said I will go and I'd love to go, but I'm going to go and launch a new album, an album that I hadn't yet started to produce or record. So I set myself the goal of having it finished and ready and have the CD in my hands. So when I sing for people and bring them the new music, then they can bring the signed copy of the CD home with me. So with them, should I say? So it was me setting a deadline for myself in a busy life with young children. Sometimes I'm an awful procrastinator, and sometimes I have to set myself hard goals.
Yeah, how's the CD going? I mean, are you the final stages of editing?
So it's all done, and it's all being pressed now, and it's about to be delivered to me hot off the presses for just in time for the 19th of November for meeting the audience.
Yes, I think I listened to a sample of that last night, and it's a lovely album, and an ideal Christmas present too.
Thank you. The idea with the album was that I was trying to have something that would take us already. You know the way as soon as Halloween is gone now, everybody's kind of thinking of Christmas, but in my own mind, I feel Christmas is a little bit too soon in November. So I wanted to take an album of music that would kind of take us across the whole season, really, you know, from winter, autumn into winter, then winter across the solstice into Christmas, and then on to the new year. So it's a kind of a transitionary attempt at collecting music and making sense of the season.
And you have some musicians joining you in Draíocht.
That's right, yeah. We'll have the musicians who are on the album by and large, and musicians that I've been working with now really for 2 decades. The Mamisa String Quartet, the book ended by first violinist and cellist, the Mason sisters from County Tipperary, and there's Siún Urifa on second violin, and Mary-Louise Bowe from County Laois on viola, and then of the wonderful Robbie Overson, who many will know as the incredible guitarist with the band Scullion, incredibly talented, gifted folk guitarist. Robbie and I have been working together since I've been professional, and he's originally from London, but he's lived in Ireland since the 80s. Still has his London accent, but he's an adopted son now at this stage.
Well, you've chosen them well.
Yeah, they're good friends. They're my tribe. I tour with them through winter every year. We just love being together and making music together. And we'll be joined by Fergal Murray for a special appearance on piano at the Draíocht concert there on the 19th.
Yeah, what strikes me is that you stick to a format which is successful, and I think it's a tribute to you that you don't try and deviate from that.
Well, you know what I think is that as any artist really has to produce music that's from their heart. And I do see, you know, artists evolve and produce completely different styles and all of that, and I think that can also be authentic. But I think once you produce what's coming from you in that moment and offer it, I mean, humbly to the audience, and offer it authentically, then it connects. So I have found, I suppose, over time that the particular blend of all of my influences, coming from a classical music background, singing a lot of folk music, being very interested in sacred music, as working for many years as a cathedral chorister, etc., that all of these things have kind of come into a fusion of a sound that makes sense for me and makes me kind of feel like wanting to connect with the audience through that music. So I guess it's evolved to an extent, and then it's kind of stabilized into this kind of sense of musically who I am, that I try to present as authentically as I can.
Well, let's go back now. You were born in Dublin.
Yeah, we're dubs, the whole way back. I have an association with County Kildare from studying in Maynooth, and I now live in County Monaghan. But my lineage goes back inner city Dublin, Cork Street, the Liberties. I actually sat down to do my family tree this time last year on one of those websites, MyHeritage. They had sponsored Eurovision a few years back, and they offered me a DNA test. And it was very interesting, actually. They did a little bit of a research into records and stuff for me, and I came up with some things that the family didn't know beforehand. But yeah, 96% Celtic genes, and then the rest was Ashkenazi Jew, actually, which was very interesting. Possibly some heritage in a Dublin merchant along the way, I would say, bringing in influences from further afield. But yeah, my ancestors all grew up in inner city Dublin.
Your mother and father's names?
So my mother's name is Siobhan Sharkey, and she grew up in Kimmage on Devonish Road, one of 10 children to Eileen and Tom Sharkey. And my father is Albert Quinn, and Albert is a big family name for the Quinns. His parents were Thomas and Rose Quinn, and he grew up on Riley's Avenue, which is just there on where the new Coombe Hospital. They say the new Coombe Hospital, but the modern Coombe Hospital there, Cork Street, Dolphins Barn. So yeah, my childhood Sundays were going for lunch in the barn, and for tea time in Kimmage, where I was one of 26 cousins who would gather in a small former county council house, 2-bedroom house, with all of my aunts and uncles and siblings. So I was immersed in family Dublin life my whole upbringing.
Yeah, and your siblings?
So I have an older sister. I'm the second of 4. And my older sister, Niamh, she holds us all together. She's terrific. And I have a brother who's a year and a half younger than me, Owen. He lives in County Wicklow. And I have my youngest sister, then, Roisin, who's she's a baby by a good bunch of years, and she's in Dublin, close to my parents.
Have any of them gone down the musical route?
No, you know, we all played music and sang along the way. We're all lucky to have inherited good singing voices from both my parents. But I'm the only one who pursued it professionally.
Yes. Well, you started very early. I mean, at the age of 4, you started being interested.
Yes, very much so. As I said, there was always kind of music in the house and singing in the house, and my mother would have been very active in choirs and that. And so my older sister Niamh joined the local church choir. I grew up in Tala, just at the village there in a small housing estate called West Park. So our local church would have been St. Mary's Dominican church in Tala Village at the Priory. And my older sister Niamh was older by 2 years. She would have joined the choir as soon as she could, I guess. And so I couldn't wait to get into the choir. I mean, I started to sing as soon as I could more or less talk. With my mother's accounts, she says that, you know, as soon as I could make noise, I was really singing and going around the house and pretending to be an opera singer and exploring my voice, driving everyone crazy, no doubt. But yeah, I couldn't wait to get singing with Niamh, so my older sister. So when one Christmas morning, when we used to take the gifts up to the altar, the kids would bring an offering, and then the smaller children who weren't yet old enough could go stand with their older siblings in the choir. And so that's my first memory of singing in community with people. I would have been about age 4, and I remember singing "O Little Town of Bethlehem" on Christmas morning. That would have been Christmas, I guess, 1976. My birthday is a week before Christmas, so I would have just had the years turning there a week before that.
You were far too young to have any musical influences at that stage, but did any influences creep in later on?
Oh, for sure, yeah, along the way. And actually very much like everybody, it's the music that's in the household, you know. My father has always been he always was a great listener to contemporary music and always had whatever the hits were on in the car, and he'd know all of what was in the charts, etc. But he also loved, and still does love, a lot of kind of country style music as well. He loved an Australian singer-songwriter called Kevin Johnson. Was a big fan of his. He loved soulful kind of songs with a story. My mother, on the other hand, I was more leaning towards classical music, I would say, and choral music, and we would have had a lot of piano music in the house. Would have had collections with, you know, like the music from Elvira Madigan, which is Mozart's Piano Concerto Number 21. Would have had the Emperor Piano Concerto from Beethoven, which again was in a movie. It was in Picnic at Hanging Rock. I remember my mother loving that. And so those kind of piano influences came in, and I couldn't wait to get to piano lessons and begged for a piano lesson. We went to a woman on our road, Nuala Bradshaw, sadly deceased now, who taught us piano, and I couldn't wait to come in and start learning, playing pieces of Beethoven, even though I was only supposed to be playing my Royal Irish Academy pieces. I couldn't wait to get into Moonlight Sonata and all those kinds of things. So that music was hugely influential, and music in general, and also radio was always on in our house, and particularly Radio 1. So Ronan Collins, who would have been played, and my mother, when you ring the house to this day, she says, "Hold on till I turn down the radio," is the first thing that's said to you when you answer the phone. So it would have always been around us. And then when I went off to sing in school, I started to be much more interested in choral music more broadly, and singing in choirs. And then I started to sing at school in the wonderful musicals that we had. Fergal Quinn was our music teacher in the presentation in Draíocht, and he did fantastic productions for us of the Gilbert and Sullivan musicals. So I got to sing Mabel in the Pirates of Penzance at only age 15, and that was the start really for me of taking my singing very seriously, because to be honest, it was because those around me, my teachers, this is a story you hear it often off, but my teachers took it seriously, and they kind of said to my mother, "This girl needs her voice trained," and all of that. So it was at that point that my mother wrote to Veronica Dunn in the College of Music, and they had me in for an audition, and that's when I started on my path, I suppose, towards vocal studies and eventually professional.
No better teacher. That takes us to your first choice of music, and that's the Choir of King's College, Cambridge, under the direction of Stephen Cleobury, perform the Estonian composers Avro Part's choral and organ setting of the Beatitudes. Any particular reason for choosing that one?
Yeah, gosh, it's a very moving work. I find it very moving from a musical point of view, just the structure of it and how it builds, and an awful lot of that is true of Arvo Part's music. The way he starts with a very simple theme, and it takes you unawares as he layers and layers and layers and develops the music very slowly to a point where it becomes deeply emotional. And when you sing this in community in a choir, and you make this sound together, it's powerful. But also the words, the Beatitudes, you know, the words of the Sermon on the Mount, I think to this day are still extraordinarily powerful, motivational and inspirational words, and the essence really of what it is to be Christian. You know, whether or not you still belong to a church or you practice. You see an awful lot of people standing up around the world in the name of religion and in the name of Christianity frequently, who could sit down and read the Beatitudes and really listen to what they say. Arvo Pärt, I think, makes those words transcend in the most extraordinary way.
We have listened to part of that. Arvo Pärt's choral and organ setting of the Beatitudes. That's the first choice of music today from our guest on Getting to Know You, Eimear Quinn, composer and singer. And beautiful piece, Eimear.
Yeah, it is very moving.
You come across as a very spiritual person, just in the brief conversation I've had so far with you.
Yeah, I think I possibly would describe myself as a spiritual person. It's hard to describe oneself, I suppose. But I do think deeply about things, and I do feel deeply about this human experience, and our experience in the context of each other. And I think that sometimes, particularly in the evolution of the way we live now, we can just become more and more isolated and live a very blinkered solitude, kind of solitary kind of a path. And I'm always looking for ways to connect and feel a sense of connection and humanity, and the fact that, and the oneness, the fact that we are all fundamentally connected to each other, and so I guess that's a spirituality, and I certainly feel that my calling has been to explore that in music, and that's what inspires me to make music, in fact.
Well, that's a lovely lesson, really, and lovely way of explaining it. Life is much more simple when you were growing up. I know that, like all of us.
Yeah.
It's changed, not for the better, I don't think. You want to talk about... you were going to go for a real job at one stage. You studied for a real job after you're leaving.
Yeah, I did I had a qualification in social science. It was actually urban and rural planning for the management of environmental resources. And the reason I did that was because I was always interested in environmental issues and nature and ecology and sustainability of our natural resources and respectful treatment of the planet around us. And that was something I was passionate about through my teens. And when I went to speak with the career guidance teacher at school, she said to me, "Well, what are you interested in?" And I said, "Well, music. I want to study music. I want to be a musician. I want to be a singer. I want to make music my life." And she said to me, "Well, music is a wonderful hobby." She said, "But it's not at all a realistic career path. You need to choose something else. What else are you interested in?" So I, took the advice of my teacher, and I said, "Well, the other thing I'm interested in is environmental science and the planet." And so we had a look, and I chose this course, which I studied for 3 years. And I found it fascinating because I am really interested in people and societies and the way we live and how that impacts the world around us. And the studies have served me well and deepened my, I suppose, my own curiosity and need for knowledge on that more and more. So studies are never lost, but at the end of the 3 years, I suppose I had been concurrently going along with my vocal studies and my musicianship studies in the College of Music and choral studies too, singing in the chamber choir and the choral society. And I was doing maybe about 8 hours a week of music studies along with my environmental studies. And by the end of it, I really realised that my heart was with music, and that even though it was a vocation and maybe never really much of a money earner or a way of sustaining myself, it was still a calling. So I decided I would go and study for my music degree at the end of it. So I never did get to work in the environmental field in the end.
Well, it's their loss, but it's our gain that you've stayed with music.
Yeah.
Also, people tend to forget that you're a composer as well, and your composition of In Paradisium was chosen by listeners of Classic FM to become part of the station's Hall of Fame, as it were.
Yeah, that's an amazing thing to have happened. I just always feel so grateful. First of all, to Classic FM in the UK, a massive classical music radio channel, that they would have brought the music to their listeners in the first instance. It was a recording I did with the RT Concert Orchestra for my last album, Eru, and they brought it to their listeners, and then they have a poll every Easter where the listeners can vote online or on phone of their favourite music that they enjoyed through the year. And there's 300 pieces of music go into this poll, like a chart. And most of the composers are deceased, it's part of the historical musical canon. And the ones who are contemporary, a lot of them are wonderful film music composers. But very few of them are female, and very few of them are composer-performers. I think I possibly am the only composer-performer performing my own work. And so it's been amazing the last 4 years in a row to have been voted in with my composition, the setting of that beautiful Latin text in Paradisium.
Well, congratulations on that. And
Thank you.
actually there, I can't remember who chose it, but one of our previous guests chose that piece of music as one of their 5 choices.
Oh, that's a lovely thing to hear.
Yeah.
That's so nice. Thanks for telling me that.
That was the first time I heard it myself. We've a template here, as you know, asking you questions and that, so we're going to go back to that again now.
Yeah.
Your second choice of music is This Woman's Work by Kate Bush from her 1989 album, The Sensual World. You're a big fan of Kate Bush, obviously.
Yeah, Kate Bush to me was a very important figure because, growing up and listening to music, contemporary music, the classical music world was obviously incredibly male-dominated in my youth, and the contemporary music world also was. Lots of fantastic bands and singers and everything, but very few really standout female singers that I felt I could relate to and their message. You probably would have had Alison Moyet and Annie Lennox and the like of that. But Kate Bush I found just so compelling because to me she's just this true artist who expressed entirely and authentically who she was through singing, through playing, through movement. I mean, 17 years of age, bursting onto the scene with Wuthering Heights on Top of the Pops. I just couldn't believe my eyes and ears what I was looking at. And so I followed her closely, and she always spoke to the heart, I felt. To take something as complicated and deeply kind of intricate and long and dark as Wuthering Heights, and to turn that into a pop song already shows a person who has a deep understanding and a way to really boil down complex issues into a little golden nugget, So she blew me away from early on.
And it's a beautiful piece of production too, the recording.
Yeah, for sure. The whole thing. And actually later in my life, one of the most thrilling things for me was an album I did with a man called Paul Brennan of the Clonard Brennans, where we wrote an album together called Through the Lens of a Tear. And on that, he had worked an awful lot in Real World Studios, and of course Peter Gabriel Studios, and he would have had a very close connection with Kate Bush. And so we went and we recorded a bit at Real World, and we worked with John Giblin, who would have been Kate Bush's bass player, and David Rhodes, her guitarist, and they play on that album. And to me, it's just, they very much sound like Peter Gabriel and Kate Bush. They bring that sound to that album. If anybody ever wanted to dig it out and listen to it, it was a thrill for me to have that connection by a couple of degrees of separation to somebody I've always admired. But the track, This Woman's Work, I just think she speaks to the heart, The words speak for themselves. There's an incredibly powerful message.
We have a listen to that. Second choice of music of our guest today, Eimear Quinn. That's Kate Bush, This Woman's Work, from her 1989 album, The Sensual World. I can understand why you're fascinated with that one, Eimear. It's a beautiful piece altogether.
And what I like about it is that the title in a way is misleading, because she does lean on the binary of the role of the man too, so it's not like this woman saying it's all her work. It's this woman's work in the context of the partnership, and
You're obviously an avid reader, because you've named 3 favourite books.
Oh, have I? I love to read. That's true. I love to read. Yeah.
And the first one is a huge tome sitting on my coffee table at home, and I'm a retired old boy, and I can't seem to get around to it. My name is Barbara.
Oh, yeah.
Barbara
Well,
Streisand.
you have to make the time for it. Yeah, and it's a commitment.
So you're a big admirer of Miss Streisand.
I am a big admirer of her, and actually much more of an admirer of her, having read the book, even more so. It's an extraordinary thing for her to be able to pull it together in this way, because what a massive career she has had, and such an influential artist, an artist who changed the entertainment world. Was a huge influence on how women really interacted with their profession, all professions in many ways.
And
in
a
America,
very strong woman.
Incredibly strong,
Very strong.
and criticised for being so demonised in many ways along the way, for being so. I find it really interesting to look at her approach and compare it, for example, to Dolly Parton, who's another woman who
Yes.
I admire tremendously. And Dolly Parton, in many ways, leaned into the hypocrisy and kind of reflected it back at the men who would try and stop her from having the equal opportunity to them, in a kind of reflected it back to them with a smile, and still was equally effective. Whereas Barbara butted heads with people for the injustice of it. They both blazed trails and changed things. With completely different approaches, but with very similar outcomes.
I'll have to make a supreme effort now to just sit down at my favourite armchair and read that. The second book, After, by Bruce Gretson, from 2021. He's a leading expert on near-death experiences.
Yeah, that's an amazing book. Yeah, by Bruce Grayson. Yeah, it's a phenomenal book. He's a man who's he's a scientist. And he's an atheist, a non-believer in any god, and he started off working as a clinical psychologist, and came across the phenomenon of near-death experiences, and he speaks to the commonality of what is reported by people who've passed away or die momentarily and then come back. And the commonality of those experiences across cultures, across faith systems, across geographical divides, across generational divides, the messages of people who couldn't possibly know each other or of each other's existences and each other's experiences have very common messages to report back.
Well, that's another one I want to read, because I've always been fascinated by that. One of my favorite.
It's a very reassuring book. Sorry to cut across you. I find it to be a very reassuring book, particularly for those who might be worried about dying. I find it an extraordinarily peaceful and reassuring book to read.
Yeah, because one of my favourite singers, Peggy Lee, she was one of the people that had near-death experiences, and illustrates it very well in her autobiography. And the third book, Circe, by Madeline Miller, 2018. That's the Greek goddess.
Yes. I believe, because I was calling it Circe as well, but I believe in Greek you have to pronounce it Kirke.
K, yeah, with the K.
With C's, yeah. And it's a brilliant book. I read her first book, which is called Song of Achilles, which is really, really terrific. I studied the classics. I studied in school when they used to have classical studies on the curriculum. And then when I went to Maynooth to study for music, I studied Greek and Roman civilization there as well initially, and was always fascinated with Greek culture in particular, and the arts and what they've given us in the arts, and how their stories are still delivering for us. In fact, I have a absolutely lovely text that I worked with my longtime collaborator Brendan Graham on the story of Icarus as well, and Daedalus, and so those stories are continuing to inspire us. But what I like about Kirke is that she's really like a sideline character normally in Greek mythology, but through this she has it's her relationship with Odysseus that comes to the fore, but how it's this kind of subplot. She becomes the heroine rather than the subplot, and it's a little bit similar with the Song of Achilles. It's the side characters that they take these stories. Madeline Miller, she's an extraordinary writer. She herself is a scholar and an academic, but she takes these stories and she reimagines the people around the central character and brings them to life in the most extraordinary way.
Well, that's another one from my bookshelf. And a name cropped up there when you were talking to me, Brendan Graham. He approached you to do the 1996 one, isn't that correct?
That's right, yeah.
And was very successful.
And he'd had 2 years previously, he'd had Rock and Roll Kids with Paul and Charlie as well.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and through Eurovision, he worked in the manufacturing industry, and after his couple of Eurovision wins, he left to go full-time into songwriting, and ended up writing the lyrics to the most covered and recorded song of all time, which is You Raise Me Up. So he's our most famous Irish creator and songwriter ever, really.
And did you enjoy your experience?
On Eurovision?
Yes.
Yeah, very much, but it was intimidating and scary too. I have to say, it wasn't all wasn't all fun and games in that regard. It was an intimidating and serious. Eurovision is interesting because it's a very serious thing for the people who are doing the professional work, but it's a very non-serious thing for all of us sitting at home and we're watching it. It's just a bit of light entertainment, you know. But when you're there and you're representing your country, you have to, you're doing something under the Irish flag, you have to give it your very best shot.
Well, you did give it your very best shot, and it was very impressive looking at it. I was revisiting it again there, and it's a very impressive performance.
Thank you.
Your third choice of music is Mozart, one of my favourite composers. It's the Andante from Piano Concerto No. 21, Johann Strauss Orchestra version with Andrew Rio. And Mozart had Dante from Piano Concerto Number 21 by Andrew Rio, and it's a beautiful piece of music. And
it's so uplifting, isn't it?
It's so uplifting. It's beautiful. I'm never tired of listening to that. I wanted to mention that you also performed for Queen Elizabeth, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, when she was doing her state visit over here. Did you get a chance to meet her?
I did. What an impressive woman. Like, really, I know that through many generations it wasn't even an option to admire a British monarch. But she had a serenity, a stillness, and a very genuine openness about her. I really felt very privileged to meet her.
She came across as a nice lady.
Yeah.
Very nice lady.
Yeah.
What about Pope Francis? Did you get a chance to meet him?
So sadly I didn't meet Pope Francis. I did perform for Pope Francis, but didn't get a chance to meet him. But my husband has met him through his work. Yes, I think he certainly is not shy of controversy and bringing himself, I suppose, trying to bring himself into contemporary conversation. But I'm sure many will agree with that when I say that the church hasn't gone far enough with trying to bring people along with them.
You mentioned your husband Noel Kern, and you're also the proud parents of Jolene and Marlene, 2 daughters.
Yeah, we say Jolene and Marlena.
Marlena. Are they taking after you in the musical field at all?
They're both gorgeous little singers, actually. Both interested in music, and they play music, and they kind of flit and flight from one instrument to the next, which they haven't taken anything in particular seriously. But the younger one is now taking her singing more seriously. She's taken some lessons. She's 12. And I think that they both certainly, music will be part of their lives. But I think what I've tried to instill in them is an idea that if you play music and you sing, it's a great companion. Music is a wonderful companion. If you can sit down at the piano and play a song for yourself, you'll never be lonely.
Well, that's nice to hear that they're following in your footsteps. You said you'd recite a piece of poetry, your favourite piece. Oh,
yes. Well, this time of year in particular, there's a poem that always comes to mind, and it's funny because, it's also the time of year when I get very busy with work, but I think everybody's very busy as soon as the kids go back to school after midterm, and it's the dash towards the end of the year, we can get very wrapped up in our thoughts, and they can really, I suppose the kind of classic idea of neurosis, that your own thoughts will consume you, and there'll be very, very few opportunities for calm and for resting your mind. There's a beautiful kind of teaching, I suppose, a prayer by Sogyal Rinpoche, which is about resting in natural great peace, this exhausted mind beaten helplessly by karma and neurotic thought, like the relentless fury of the pounding waves in the infinite ocean of samsara. And I always kind of reach for that. But one of the poems that brings me there at this time of year is by the American poet Mary Oliver, and it's When I Am Among Trees. Would you like me to read it for you, or recite it for you?
Please.
When I'm among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I'd almost say that they save me, and daily. I'm so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me the trees stir in their leaves and call out, stay a while, and the light flows from their branches. And they call again. It's simple, they say. And you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light and to shine.
Beautiful piece and beautifully read, Eimear. That reminds me of COVID and the peace we got by going out among nature. It got us through COVID, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Reconnection. It was a reconnection.
We'll go with your fourth choice of music now, and it's another of my favourite composers, Beethoven, and it's the Piano Concerto Number 5 in E-flat major, Opus 73, better known as the Emperor Concerto, and it's the Christian Zimmermann and the London Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Sir Simon Rattle.
Thank you.
Beethoven's Piano Concerto Number 5 in E-flat major, the fourth choice of music by from our guest Eimear Quinn. And Eimear, where's time going? I mean, I'm wallowing in that beautiful music, and I wish we'd another hour to talk. We want to run briefly through your movies, your favourite 3 movies. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days from 2003. Any reason for liking that?
I love Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey together. I think they just have such hilarious chemistry. They're both brilliant at not taking themselves very seriously, and rom-coms are one of my favourite genres.
And The Horse Whisperer from 1998, Robert Redford and Kristen Scott Thomas, and a young Scarlett Johansson. That's it by an amazing American novelist called Nicholas Evans. He wrote another brilliant book called The Loop, and again set, in the American Rockies. And I love that The Horse Whisperer in particular, the story, and then the dramatisation of it. This very successful city woman, realising that when her life falls apart, that she wasn't successful at all in terms of how she would measure her life and her happiness. Brilliant film. And a more recent one then from 2024, That They May Face the Rising Sun, the John McGarren novel.
Pat Collins's realisation of that book. Recently got to see it they had a screening at the Patrick Kavanagh weekend here in Skene in County Monaghan, and Pat came and spoke to us, took questions from the audience afterwards. But Barry Ward is amazing as Joe, and it's such an undertaking to take such a beloved work, John McGahern's book, and turn it into film. And it was done so sensitively and so beautifully, showing the stunning countryside, and the simplicity of the story, and the deep tragedy of the human relationship and the cost of I suppose societal norms in some ways, and then on the other hand the beauty of human relationships and compassion and kindness. So it's a beautiful film. If anybody has an opportunity to see it, I urge you to go see it. The Buckley sisters do an incredible job of supporting it and with lovely music, and the Belfast pianist Ruth McKinley playing piano so sensitively. It's gorgeous.
You have named 3 people as your heroes. Ram Dass, teacher.
Yeah. He's an American spiritual teacher, recently deceased actually. If anybody is interested in seeing more about him, there is a wonderful documentary on Netflix with his teachings. And he really, we could choose very many teachers with the same message, really, which is just that message of oneness and love, and that we are all one, and that everything is love. And if we could lean into that as a teaching, what a different world we'd all live in. I chose Ram Dass because he had an interesting life himself. He wasn't born into spirituality. He came into it over the course of his life and ended up affecting so many other people's lives.
And Taylor Swift and Kamala Harris, the other 2 favourite people.
Yeah. Taylor Swift, it took me by surprise, and I got interested in her through my girls and ended up going to see her concert this year. And again, it was the love and the positivity of her that has really taken me aback, just being at the concert and seeing this woman standing in all of her power, preaching kindness and love and inclusion. And it's a powerful message when somebody has the amount of influence that she has, that she could set this example and receives very, very, very consequential hate for it, for her success. But shuns it and just preaches inclusion. Is, I think, a wonderful role model for our kids to have.
And Kamala Harris?
Well, she's currently inspiring me and being a hero to me, because I think she's the last bastion of decency between us and a descent into goodness only knows what on the other side of the water at the moment. So, and she's doing it with tremendous dignity. And so I really admire her dignity and her hopefulness and her description, of her self-description of being a joyful warrior, which is exactly what we need in the face of division and fear.
Well, Eimear, time has caught up with us. It's been a pleasure talking to you. We wish you every success in your upcoming tour. The 19th across the road from us here in Draíocht.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's sold out already, but however, if it's not, check with Draíocht.
I think there are still some tickets for those who are busy around us. You can definitely still come along, and then I take it from there on the 1st of December down to Kinsale and all around the country, to Carlow, to Ennis, to Ballinasloe, to Ballycotton in East Cork. I'm going to be in the solstice in Navan, then closer to Christmas I'm going to be in St Finbarr's and Carrickmacross and St Bridget's Cathedral, finishing on the solstice on the 21st. So apart from the couple of theatres, we're mostly in churches and cathedrals, which will be just
every success with the tour and with the CD. I'm Chris Hitchcock. The programme concept is by Tony Maycock, who also produced and looked after sound for us today. And your final choice of music is Taylor Swift's song Epiphany. So we'll go out on that, Eimear, and thanks once again for appearing on the programme.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Thank you.
Now, so I think he's bleeding out, and some things you just can't speak about. With you I serve, with you I fall down, down. Watch you breathing, watch you breathing out, out. Something med school did not cover. Someone's daughter, someone's mother. Hold your hand through plastic now. Doc, I think she's crashing out, and some things you just can't speak